4v2, a 4v1, Jogamo, the one champion on this stage, asked to do it all. The lockdown in play, no hope in hell. 16 to 14, the uncrowned kings of a forgotten throne are at long last anointed. T1 are your Masters Bangkok champions!
Buzz and Stax finally did it. After nearly 5 years of grinding this game, only to fall short on the international stage, they now have a Masters title. Many fans are already calling the Masters Bangkok Grand Final the greatest Valorant match of all time. And honestly, I might have to agree. The final between G2 and T1 was a movie, but as the first international event of 2025, it was honestly a banger from start to finish. So for those of you who maybe only tuned in to the grand finals, here's a quick rundown of how we even got there. Trace exited the tournament in last place, and no hate to them, but honestly, I think a lot of people expected that result. But what we didn't expect was for Sentinels to also finish last, absolutely collapsing against Team Liquid. Nats sort of rolled back the years here, because it felt like we were watching Masters Berlin with the performance he put on Bind. The dude went f***ing nuclear, and if you're a fan of Sentinels, I'm sorry, because you're probably trying to forget this play.
Made it
Hold the plant!
Coverage.
Hold the What the f? What? Bro!
In the following round, G2 avenged Sentinels and knocked out Liquid, but overall, I think it was a pretty promising showing for this EMEA squad, especially considering that no one really expected them to even qualify in the first place. As for the defending world champions, EDG breezed through the Swiss stage off the back of some ridiculous performances from Chichu. Dude was rolling like f***ing Thanos through most of this event.
Gunkung and Chichu asked a lot of. Chichu has been golden so far, and a big opportunity. Oh, he's still fighting! A huge 1v2. He knows about Leaf. Does he know about Trent still? 7 bullets, 17 HP, and a bit of a dream. But Trent can make this one all but over. All but tears in the rain. Trent trying to call him forward. Chichu, he answers the call!
Chichu practically 1v9'd against T1 on Pearl in the opening round of playoffs, but EDG ultimately lost in their rematches against G2 and T1, exiting the tournament in 3rd place. We saw some flashes of the EDG that won champions, but their anti-ecos just looked atrocious. It felt like there were so many times they had a gun advantage, but just through. And another team that sort of just fizzled out in the playoffs was the EMEA super team, Vitality. They played a close match against G2 and started off strong against T1 in the lower bracket, but the last 2 maps were just rough.
Angel over towards that screen corner, keeps sticks back, out into the open, and Meteor takes his head clean off. First kill advantage, now the second. As Meteor looks to take over the round. Buzz fighting 1, Meteor on for 3, safe, the IGL, the captain, the only one, and he cannot get it done! 13 to 5, T1 earn their position in the lower final.
The silver lining here is that Durke is still Durke and Les is still absolute class, but it does feel like we're starting to see a trend where safe-led teams can't quite get across the finish line on the international stage. That being said, this is the first big event of the year, so I'm sure that Vitality will tighten things up just like other teams have. Their firepower on paper is insane, so I have no doubt that they'll be vying for that Masters Toronto and Champions Paris trophy. But going back to G2, these guys proved why so many people had them as their favorites heading into the event. They clearly got caught off guard by EDG's playstyle in the Swiss stage, but quickly put that loss behind them and started dominating everyone. Trent and Leaf led the way in their 2-0 victory against Vitality, and Jogamo reminded everyone why he's a world champion in their stomp against EDG. That win against EDG meant that G2 were headed to the grand finals, and they were rewarded for coming through on the upper bracket with a huge map veto advantage. Now, like I said earlier, G2 were one of the teams who many people expected to make a run to the grand finals, but the same can't be said for their opponent, T1. Heading into the event, Platchat even ranked them as the worst team competing in Bangkok. Obviously, those rankings aged like milk, but I'll cut them some slack. They knew the list was a bit wild, and considering everything that was going on with T1 heading into Masters, pretty much nobody expected them to go on a run like this. Despite being labeled as a Korean super team during the offseason, they've had their their fair share of struggles. They subbed in Carpe near the end of Pacific playoffs amid some internal issues. And although he played a huge role in helping them qualify for Bangkok, they ultimately lost Pacific Grand Finals and their opening match at Masters. Hell, even in the lead up to this event, the team's IGL Meteor publicly criticized T1's head coach Autumn, specifically their tactics and feedback during timeouts.
So this is Meteor saying this. About our timeouts, where do I begin? So let's say someone makes a mistake in game.
Never a good start.
Let's say someone makes a mistake in game. Head coach Autumn often tells us to wake up or focus up. But what I told him is we know better than anyone about our mistakes in games since we're in the server. What we want is solutions when we hit a wall.
T1 even had Carpe in the coaching booth with Autumn during some of the kickoff matches to help the team during timeouts. So there was a lot of pressure on Autumn, but in the end, he answered the call. It really felt like the turning point for this roster was eliminating their domestic rivals, DRX, the team that Stax and Buzz had been a part of for so many years just before leaving to join T1.
What's up, guys? Who's the best team in Korea now? Come on!
Despite letting their match against EDG slip away, T1 looked incredible against Vitality, and went on to send the defending world champions home in their rematch in the lower final. For Buzz and Stax, this was a pretty big deal. They bested their third place finish from back at Champions 2022, and now they had the chance to lift their first ever international trophy. We were either going to see the former The Guard Corps become the first Ascension team to ever win an international event, or Buzz and Stax, arguably two of the best players to never win a chip, finally get their title. But the match started off in G2's favor with a 13-5 stomp on their map pick Lotus. T1 then clapped back with an albeit closer 13-9 victory on Haven. But things were only going to get closer from here. T1 took the lead on Abyss, but G2 ultimately won map 3, 13-11 off the back of some incredible heroics from Jagamo.
And it is all on Jaw. They're trying to stop this Thrifty from coming through. Binds two, the reload completed. An eventual drift online. Swipe! And he gets it done! Jagamo!
Map 3 slipped through T1's fingertips, but despite falling behind early on map 4, the team was able to get a reset and grind out a dramatic 15-13 win, sending the match to a 5th and final decider on Pearl. And boy, was this a barn burner. The final map was f***ing insane. G2 fumbled hard early, gifting T1 the bonus round, but they fought back from an 8-4 deficit and took over the second half with some incredible retakes, taking an 11-9 lead. And that's where things got interesting.
Meteor run down, Sylvan in the smoke, finds himself a second, but Trent will flush him out. The swap of the weapons, the defuse being held. Trent, he's out at safety. He's desperately trying to get it done, and he's just managed to do it. The spike goes off.
After that ridiculous round, G2 managed to win yet another retake, putting them on championship point for a second time in the series. But T1 refused to go down without a fight, sending the game to overtime, where they really put the pressure on the North Americans. The Koreans now had the momentum, and G2 managed to fight off 2 championship points themselves, but after 30 rounds of play, it was clear that this was T1's moment.
A 4v2, a 4v1, Jagamo! The one champion on this stage, asked to do it all. The lockdown in play, no hope in hell. 16-14, the uncrowned kings of a forgotten throne are at long last anointed. T1 are your Masters Bangkok champions.
If you're a fan of Valorant esports, then you'll know that for Buzz and Stax, this moment was nearly 5 years in the making. These guys have been around since the early days of this game, but it seemed like they were always cursed to choke on the international stage. To put it into perspective, Buzz even overtook Burke for the most kills at a global event during that series. But seeing them embrace right after they won is honestly enough to make a grown man cry. These guys thoroughly deserve it, alongside the rest of the team. Sylvan had a hell of a tournament, and I honestly think that Izu is somehow still underrated, considering he was the most consistent player throughout their run. He was the key to a lot of their double duelist success on a bunch of maps, while also being able to flex onto Cypher and Fade when his team needed him to. But with this win, Meteor has now joined the exclusive club of 8 players who have won 2 separate international events, and he's the only Pacific player to do so. He's also the first player to win back-to-back Masters events. Meteor was even voted the finals MVP and awarded with this very iced out bracelet similar to the one that Kong received after winning Champions Grand Final last year. And for the Overwatch fans watching, yeah, Carpe finally won something. But for G2, this one is definitely gonna sting. This was one of, if not the closest Grand Final we've ever witnessed, and they lost by the slimmest of margins. T1 actually won despite nobody on their team going positive in the series. Regardless, G2 should still hold their heads high. Since adding Jagamo, they've won kickoff and made it to the Grand Finals of an international event. And the championship points that they earned will be crucial when it comes to qualifying for Champions Paris at the end of the year, which, just to remind you, they need to do if they want to retain their spot in VCT Americas next year. But looking back at Masters Bangkok, what a way to start the 2025 season after an off-season that felt like a fucking eternity. Valorant is truly back, folks, and we have just witnessed one of the all-time great Grand Finals.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit us up on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.